Chapter 11. The Stand of Hamzah. The Prophet, peace be upon him, had received the command from Allah to call his family, the closest of kin, to the message of Islam. He knew it was time to warn them of the truth he had been entrusted with, but the task weighed heavy on his heart. He gathered the Bani Abdul Muttalib, offering them food and drink, and when they had eaten, he rose to speak. "God has commanded me to warn you," he said, his voice steady but filled with the gravity of his mission. "I know of no Arab who has come to his people with a message nobler than mine. I bring you the best of this world and the next. Who among you will help me in this?" The room was silent. None of his uncles, none of the elders spoke. Only young Ali, just 13 years old, stood up and declared, "O Prophet of God, I will be your helper." The Prophet placed his hand on Ali's shoulder, declaring him his brother, his executor, and his successor. The gathering ended in laughter, with some mocking Abu Talib saying, "He has commanded you to obey your son." But despite the ridicule, the Prophet's call began to spread beyond the family, reaching the ears of Quraysh. And as the number of Muslims quietly grew, so too did the anger and hostility of the disbelievers. One day, the Prophet, peace be upon him, entered the sanctuary of the Kaaba, performing the sacred rounds around the black stone. As he passed by a group of Quraysh chiefs gathered in the Hijr, they began hurling slanders and insults at him. He heard their words, but continued in silence. On his third round, however, the Prophet stopped and faced them. His gaze was resolute, and his voice carried weight as he said, "O Quraysh, will you listen to me? By him who holds my soul in his hand, I bring you slaughter." His words struck them like a thunderclap. For a moment, the entire group was bound in silence, awed by the conviction in his tone. Finally, one among them, his hostility momentarily dulled, said gently, "Go your way, O Abu al-Qasim, for by God, you are not a fool." Yet their resolve to oppose him soon returned, and their hearts hardened once again. Chief among them was a man named Amr, known to Quraysh as Abu al-Hakam, but to the Muslims as Abu Jahl, the father of ignorance. He was relentless in his persecution of the believers, and on one occasion he found the Prophet sitting alone near the Safa gate. Sensing an opportunity, Abu Jahl unleashed a torrent of insults. The Prophet remained silent, enduring the abuse, and after a time, Abu Jahl entered the mosque, satisfied with his display. It was then that Hamzah, the uncle of the Prophet, returned from hunting, his bow slung over his shoulder. As he approached the Kaaba, a woman from the household of Abdullah ibn Judan called out to him, telling him of the humiliations his nephew had just suffered at the hands of Abu Jahl. Her words ignited a fire within Hamzah. His anger swelled, and in that moment his heart opened to a truth that had long been forming. Without hesitation, he stormed into the mosque, found Abu Jahl, and struck him forcefully across the back with his bow. "Will you insult him?" Hamzah said. "Now that I am of his religion, and now that I avow what he avows? Strike me back if you can." Abu Jahl, though prideful, knew better than to escalate the situation. When some of his clan rose to defend him, he waved them down, admitting, "Leave Abu Umara be, for I did indeed revile his brother's son most shamefully." With Hamzah's conversion, Quraysh grew more cautious. They knew that to harm the Prophet was now to provoke the wrath of one of their mightiest warriors. But their determination to suppress this new message only deepened. They sought new strategies, and soon one of their elders, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, approached the Prophet with an offer. "O son of my brother," Utbah began, "thou art, as thou knowest, a noble of the tribe. Thou hast rifted the community, declared our ways foolish, and spoken ill of our gods. Hear what I propose. If it is wealth thou seekest, we shall make thee the richest of us. If honor, we shall make thee our chief. If kingship, we shall crown thee our king. And if it is a spirit that torments thee, we shall find thee a physician." The Prophet listened patiently, then said, "Now hear me, O father of Walid." And he began to recite the Quran, verses of divine origin that spoke of creation, of the prophets of old, and the fate of those who rejected them. Utbah, though prepared to argue, was quickly captivated by the beauty of the words. He sat in awe, listening until the Prophet completed the recitation, then said, "You have heard, O father of Walid. The matter is now between you and that." When Utbah returned to Quraysh, they saw the change in his expression. "What has happened to you, O Abu Walid?" they asked. "I have heard words the like of which I have never heard before. It is not sorcery, nor poetry, nor soothsaying. Leave this man be, for if the Arabs overcome him, you are rid of him. But if he overcomes them, then his glory will be your glory." But Quraysh mocked him, saying, "He has bewitched you with his tongue." And though Utbah's heart had been stirred, the impression was fleeting. Yet despite all their efforts, the Prophet continued to preach, unwavering, calling his people to the truth, while the ranks of his followers grew, slowly but surely, strengthened by the conviction of new believers, like Hamzah, who stood as a pillar of protection for the fledgling Muslim community.